Thank you all for joining. My name is Amira, and I would like to wish you a warm welcome to second Comparative Agility Meetup in 2023. As you already know, our speaker today will be Steve, also known as the Value Stream Guy. Steve is a board advisor to the VSM Consortium and CEO of Visible Value Stream Consulting. For the past 20 years, his focus has been on using collaborative mapping techniques to guide ambitious and struggling teams toward their true north. He likes to say that he's obsessed with being a human and leveraging it to deliver continuous. We're going to record this session, and we're going to share the meetup recording in the comments on Meetup, so you can come back to it or share with whoever you think is going to find it very valuable. And also you can post your questions in the chat, or you can speak at the end of the event. Steve, this is your first time at our meetup, so welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Yeah, I really only found out about this community a short while ago as we started looking at how to assess value stream management in organizations and get folks started with value stream management. So it's been very interesting to learn about how much depth and breadth is in this community across all the assessments that comparative agility hosts. So very pleased to be a part of that. And our sort of collaboration has come together really quickly, and we're all really excited about it. So you may be new to value stream management. You may have heard about it in the past. Hopefully this presentation appeals to everybody, regardless of where you're coming from.
I'm trying to just
we got a couple people off mute, it looks like.
Please mute yourself so we are not making a big noise. I'm trying to mute everyone. It's going to be easier if I'm trying to mute themselves.
Tough. However, you got your work cut out for you. But I'm glad you're here, because otherwise I'd be lost. Anyways, I'm going to get started. So Amra gave me an excellent introduction. You don't need to know much more about me, but I've been through many, many different roles across large and small organizations. And what I've really come to find valuable is this idea of cross-organizational flow. So working together collaboratively to deliver value to customers. And value stream management is really the practice of doing that at a professional level, at a high performance level. And it involves many different factors that kind of tie together what is truly important to improving organizational performance over a long term and sustainably. So for a little bit of background, this is kind of a classic context for value stream management, or just continuous improvement in general, right? So we have these giant backlogs of things that we want to do that either customers are demanding, the business is demanding, we demand of ourselves, and we demand of our teams. And under any circumstances, especially now, we always need to be doing more with less. We need to improve the delivery of value, so what we're able to do with what we have, and while continuously improving quality so we don't get buried in bugs and issues. And we need to keep people happy while we do this, right? So the question is, how do we do this? How do we juggle all of these things and continuously move forward? And all this becomes harder and harder because as we scale organizations, waste and delay rise, right? We can't continuously scale without scaling waste and scaling delays. And we're collaborating more than ever, right? It's very important to us as agile practitioners, as people in software delivery, to be collaborating across multiple roles. And so how do you address these coordination costs? How do you manage any of this stuff? So what happens in a typical workflow is that, we start with this lack of clarity. We can't see what's going on. We don't have visibility into the entire organization or all of the roles, and everything that it's going to take to deliver success, right? So we try to do too much. We get blocked by all of the separate concerns in the organization, all these things that need to be tied together and work in concert. We don't get it right, so we have to go back to the drawing board constantly. We're amassing technical debt because we have to make compromises all the time. And we're constantly getting interrupted by people who are asking, when is it going to be done? Or drop that, we need to work on this because, that's taking too long, or this emergency arose. And all this makes things very, very difficult, right? And our typical model for thinking about the way that we organize and get work done doesn't help, right? We're organized into these silos. We're organized into this formal hierarchy that tells us a reporting structure. But what really happens to deliver value to customers is we bounce all over the organization, right? We need sales and marketing to work together. We need all that information direct from customers to inform our product decisions. We need planning and portfolio management to be aware of technical debt concerns, regulatory compliance, legal issues. All of this needs to tie together. And what happens when we are stuck with the org chart as our primary model for operations is that we just end up bouncing all over the organization, right? Waiting for this collaboration that's not part of the DNA of the organization. So what are we thinking about when we're thinking about value stream management? Customer and value is a first-class citizen. That's one of the things I like most about value stream management, is that value is one of the primary focus aspects because it's right there in the name, right? We're talking about management in the context of everyone in the business, right? The business as a whole, a holistic definition of everyone collaborating together, not just the separation between sales and IT, or the business and IT, or tech and legal. We're talking about everybody working together. And we're talking about capabilities, not individual actors, right? Value stream management is not about individuals. It's about the organization. It's about everybody working together. And it allows us to see this flow across the organization. It's all about cross-organizational flow from the customer backwards to what it takes to deliver that customer value. So let's look at a pretty simplistic definition of a value stream. In case this is a new concept to you, what I really care about the most is this scope of hypothesis to happiness, right? So the idea that something that we can do will provide value all the way to the delivery of that ultimate value, right? And the reaction to that. So what we do in easy terms to identify that is to work backwards, right? It really helps to see a value stream by working backwards from a customer outcome. So let's say we turn something on, we've created a feature, we've done something, we turn it on, a customer is using it, and they can react. They can tell us, fantastic, I wish it was a little bit different, or this is totally not the thing that I asked for, right? And we work backwards to understand what happened before that, what enabled that delivery, what enabled that step. And we can trace our way all the way back to the initial idea. And this reveals the value stream, right? This reveals this flow of work that resulted in delivering that customer outcome. Sometimes we'll try to trace a value stream or see a value stream from start to finish. And what happens that way is you can follow this wandering path and branch out into all parts of the organization, because a lot of this is complex, right? So the easiest way to see a value stream is to trace it backwards. And eventually, once your organization is stream aligned and stream oriented, you can trace it forwards and backwards and however you want. but you might get lost in the weeds if you start from hypothesis and start going forward. Because as I mentioned in that org chart illustration, we're bouncing all over the organization. So another important aspect of this is that it's continuous, right? We're not talking about a single flow. We're not talking about projects. We're talking about long-lived product delivery, what it takes to sustainably deliver value more and more over and over, iterating and improving the way that we do that over time. So another way to look at this is through our classic loop, right? Where we're tracing all the way from hypothesis to happiness and back again over and over. It's important to think about value streams in the context of processes, but value streams are more than processes. They're collections of processes. And what's really important about them is that they're connected to customer outcomes. And those customers could be internal customers, of course. The customers could be other teams in your organization, but there is a customer. And it helps to understand the customer in the context of a customer outcome, because if we're just thinking about customers are consuming multiple different products, multiple experiences all the time. And those can be facilitated by different streams, right? If I'm a customer of Pepsi, I have a value stream that's delivering me Pepsi, the drink, and delivering me Doritos, and they are not the same, right? So depending on the customer outcome, that's going to reveal the value stream that we're focused on. So the reason that we want to do this is, there are many reasons, but two of the most important reasons from my perspective are this idea of flow and levels of flow. So we have the idea of collective flow, of course, all the way across the organization, everything it takes to deliver value. But it's also really important to think about personal flow and the idea that we work best when we are in this sweet spot between challenge and our skill level, right? So that we are able to deliver at our highest level of capability. And in collective flow, what we care about is minimizing waste, right? Minimizing delay, minimizing friction. In personal flow, what we want to do is maximize engagement and performance. And so minimize, maximize doesn't really matter, but what we want to do in each context is a little bit different. And what's important about this is that we really can't have personal flow without collective flow, right? And if you think about this, and for example, no matter how much I try and focus and keep myself in the zone, if I'm constantly being interrupted, if I have to wait for things to happen, I'm never going to be able to stay in that state of flow for very long. So it's very important that we have collective flow in order to enable personal flow. So value stream management is a practice that unlocks personal flow for as many people in the organization as possible, right? So the goal is to try and get maximum performance and maximum engagement from everybody by unlocking their ability to get in and stay in flow, and do that together, which is the part of the collective that's so important. So a lot of people, when they're thinking about value streams, they're like, okay, well, what does this look like? I know about customer journeys. You may have heard about customer journeys. How does a customer journey differ from a value stream? A lot of people mix this up, and very understandably, because we're talking about flow here. We're talking about things that happen in sequence. We're talking about processes. We're talking about time and ultimately delivering value. So isn't that just a customer journey? And a customer journey is a little bit different. It's experienced by a customer. It is facilitated and enabled by multiple value streams. And I'll show you a couple examples. So if we look at a typical customer journey, it involves learning about your company and what they offer, and then becoming a customer of your company and hopefully becoming a promoter of your company, right? They're so happy. They're reviewing your products positively. They're referring friends and colleagues to your company. And what makes that happen is the delivery of value streams. So we might see a marketing value stream delivering campaigns that make it easier for customers to discover your products, right? So they're delivering on different advertising efforts, different ways of getting in front of prospective customers and telling them about your products and what you do. And then what happens is as they move forward through the journey, they're encountering the products of other value streams. And the one we're probably most familiar with is the product development value stream. So what's actually building and delivering your products. And in an agile and a software sense, this is code, this is software as a service, this is what it takes to put something together that your customers can consume. And so you can look at a customer journey as kind of a framework for understanding the deliverables of your value streams in context of what it means to your customers, right? So this can be a useful representation to put this picture together of how all the value streams of your organization have an impact on your customers, why they matter, and how to think about them in the context of the customer's view. So why does this matter for us why should we look at value streams? Why should we consider value streams? And so what we typically see in organizations is that we spend a lot of time in this hypothesis to happiness flow. And a significant portion of that time is waste. It's time that we're waiting around, that we're not producing value. We're not creating anything that a customer would find valuable and that they're really happy to pay for, right? We spend a lot of time doing coordination efforts, collaboration efforts, especially as we scale up our organizations. And so in many cases, we have more than 50% of the time that we spend, up to 80% of the time that we spend in a value stream is wasted time. And it's very difficult to see it. Sometimes we can feel it. We know that the clock is ticking. We're kind of aware of it, but we don't quantify it. We don't measure it. So what happens is that what we can do with a value stream and value stream management is quantify that waste and eliminate it so that we unlock more time for improvement efforts, learning, skill development, all the things that we know lead to better outcomes, but we can't really take the time to do those things, right? We're so busy that we often forget that we have to invest in the future. So what we can do with value stream management is quantify that time, measure the flow, understand what we can eliminate in terms of waste and delay, and then channel that time towards more valuable efforts. So I want to illustrate this with a little bit of a case. So Nationwide Insurance, they've been in the value stream space for quite a while. They had a couple of folks join about 7 or 8 years ago who came from a couple of different interesting backgrounds. So they came from networking. So they understood the idea of an entire system and how an entire system's throughput is constrained by delays and by individual aspects of the network that aren't performing to the maximum of their performance. So they understood the ideas behind value stream management. Some of them came from manufacturing and physical goods. And so they understood the flow of work and kind of the traditional history of value stream management. And what they did was they came into Nationwide and they looked at the workflow. And what happened when they measured the value stream is that they realized that the developers working on product inside of Nationwide were only able to spend 2.5% of their time on developing valuable code. So they spent a ton of time in meetings, in ceremonies, in rework, in troubleshooting, in waiting for things to happen, trying to get access to resources, environments, all these things that get in the way. And of course, they were aware that things weren't great, but until they measured the value stream and until they looked at the end-to-end flow and the time that was spent, they didn't realize how bad it was. And it was very difficult for them to make a case for improvement, right? So it's very important to measure these things, because otherwise, it kind of just looks like complaining that things aren't really that good. But if we can measure and quantify the delays, what we can do is translate that into real costs to the business, real impact. And all of a sudden, leadership starts to pay attention. We're speaking the language of finance and people who control budgets, and things start to happen. So in their case, they were able to dramatically improve their performance, eliminate vast amounts of this waste, and really start to capitalize on their technical delivery efforts, whereas before they were just gradually being buried in technical debt and this giant backlog of things that weren't getting done. So for a little bit of background, where we see value stream management in relation to a lot of things that we might be familiar with in the Agile world is that our typical Agile software development comes from projects, right? We started in the software world by looking at projects. We had start to finish. It was very difficult to come together and build something. And we had to pull a bunch of people together to do it. And we didn't have to do it very often. So we would just basically do one version of a software at a time. And we would switch between this development and operations phase, right? We'd say, let's develop a new version of the software. You release it, and then you manage all of the technical issues and implementation that it would take to operate this. And I was in this space for many, many years. But this whole time, there was a parallel stream where everything was oriented towards flow. And it comes from traditional manufacturing. It actually comes from the 1600s when we started making boats at scale. But more recently, it comes from making automobiles as effectively as possible. There was so much demand for making cars, and it was so expensive and so challenging to coordinate all of the pieces that it took to create that product, that we started to look at things like time and motion, like how long does it take to do everything? And so value stream management really came out of this focus on lean, how to be most effective and efficient. And it kind of progressed through this idea of application lifecycle management, which people didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about or investing in because the tooling wasn't really there at the time. And it kind of came back with DevOps. After a while, people started to look at, okay, well, we have Dev and Ops, but it's actually, there's a lot of moving pieces here. And what we really care about is velocity and measuring throughput and understanding that we want to minimize rework and all these things that come from value stream management again, because the focus became continuous delivery of software, right? So as we look at continuous delivery and the true meaning of continuous, you want to focus on flow, right? And we're moving away from projects in that context to something that will continuously deliver value to customers. So in the context of lean thinking, we want to really strongly understand value. This is a big reason why value stream management is so valuable in lean. We want to map the value stream, which is how we understand the value stream and understand the measurements of the performance of that value stream. We want to create flow to unlock higher performance. We want to introduce ways of customers pulling what they want from us rather than pushing things out to the market, and then continuously improve. And all these principles of lean really are value stream management principles as well. So if you're interested in lean and really kind of the theory and philosophy behind value stream management, there's tons of valuable information out there. And what we are at right now in the state of lean and value stream management is pulling together all these tools that we have. We now have many, many tools for tracking and understanding and facilitating this development of digital products. And it's really challenging to understand the big picture because none of them is really connected to all of the rest. And so this has given rise to the adoption of value stream management platforms that really tie all these tools together and help you track the work all the way through that hypothesis to happiness cycle. So this is where we're headed as an industry. It's still pretty rocky. It's still pretty challenging to tie all these tools together. But the idea and the goal of value stream management is to do that so that you can focus on the work and have something else track how things are going, right? Because if we have to step out of the work, or if we have to have somebody continuously monitoring the work, then there's less work getting done, right? So the goal of value stream management and value stream management platforms is to do this passively so that we understand our performance over time, and then we can spend time on high value activities. Like value stream mapping is a high value activity that people need to do. We need to gather people together, sit together, whether it's in a virtual room or in a real room, and understand what can we do about the workflow. Value stream management is more of a monitoring thing than a reinvention activity that value stream mapping is. But I'll talk to you a little bit more about how value stream mapping is a part of this as well. So value stream management platforms really kind of allow you to continuously inspect workflow. And there's a couple of valuable reasons why you would want to do that. So of course, we want to understand how the work is working, but we also want to understand that we're kind of complying with regulations, that we're being as secure as we possibly can, that people are working together effectively, nobody's being left out of the loop, everyone has access to information. There's all kinds of reasons why this idea of continuous inspection of the work that's being done is valuable. And again, back to the very early points that I was making, this is not about tracking individuals, it's really about tracking the overall cross-functional flow of the work that's being done and pulling all that together. So what do we care about when we're inspecting, right? When we're looking at a value stream, we care from one side about efficiency, and that's really about getting things done, right? Getting things out the door, because the more swings you have at the ball, the more you're going to hit home runs, right? So you want to be very good at execution, but you also want to be extremely good at effectiveness, right? What it's going to take to do the right thing and create the most positive outcome. So we care about these two aspects of measurement, and all of that gets brought into this idea of what we measure across a value stream. And so there's three buckets that we like to think about this in the Value Stream Management Consortium. This came out of Gartner's collection of all kinds of different metrics that folks typically measure. Some of these are much more common than others. A lot of folks are looking at things like code delivery speed, like lines of code, and ignoring everything else. And of course, that's going to get you into a really messy situation. But if you can start to look at measurement from across multiple different metrics and make sure that you're not pulling too hard in one direction, then you get this holistic understanding of performance. And a value stream management platform will allow you to collect all of this and see how it all correlates together, which is very important to understanding, passively how a team is performing, and understand where to intervene. Where do they need help? Where are they going to need automation, supports, maybe the help of an enabling team? There's all kinds of things that these metrics can signal on top of just understanding passive performance. So how does this all come together? the way that I kind of advise folks to approach this is to understand their target. What is it you're trying to do, right? Are you trying to deliver more value? Are you trying to lower costs? Are you trying to eliminate waste? Retain your talent, right? People might be fed up with what it takes to do their work. There's all kinds of reasons. It helps to pick one and start there. And once you've addressed a single clarified target, you can pick something else and you can pick whatever you want. But starting with a clear target really helps. It really helps to understand that target in the context of a stream. So what is delivering that? What is primarily involved in achieving that target? And that's going to point you towards hopefully a single workflow, right? You can zoom in on what is a single value stream that we can start with that's going to deliver that target outcome. So let's look at, let's say we're really struggling to retain talent. We're losing our best people to the competition. If you focus on what is the workflow that those people are in, then we can start to understand the friction they have to deal with, the challenges, why they're not able to feel like they're making progress or achieving their goals, right? So that's going to point us towards a stream, and then who's involved in that stream? Who are the people who are in this situation that we need to understand what's going on from, right? So we can work together to assess the current state. And of course, the assessment through comparative agility is a great part of this. Value stream mapping is another great way of assessing, really looking at the big picture and understanding how's the work working today. And what that's going to reveal is the gaps and the constraints, right? The things that aren't at the level that we want them to be. And that allows us to focus our efforts, right? We can't do everything. Back to the, that early slide of the giant backlog. There's only a few things in that backlog that matter today, and we can prioritize them and we can focus on the things that are going to have the greatest impact. And the great thing about a value stream management initiative is that we can unlock performance that will allow us to tackle any backlog more effectively and more efficiently, right? So no matter how long the list is, we're going to get better at churning through that list by improving our value stream performance. And all of that is going to point us to what are the important capabilities that will unlock higher levels of performance, right? So what do we need? Do we need automation for testing? Do we need better planning frameworks or approaches? Do we need fewer meetings? Do we need to consolidate meetings? Do we need passive information radiators in the organization? It could be anything, but we're going to be making decisions on what to do based on data and what we've been able to see in the value stream, which means we're going to be able to use that data to get budget, to talk about what we need to do with other people who aren't involved or don't necessarily understand what we're asking for. Data can really help us with that. And the visualization that we can get from assessment can really help make that case in a language that people understand, right? It's very difficult to talk about these things if you don't have a lot of experience, but you can show people a diagram, you can show people metrics. That speaks very clearly and can really help make an argument for investment and spending time and effort on things like automation. You can connect all of those efforts to what actually matters to your customers. So all of this, of course, gets repeated. You're never done. You're always going to have a new target, but you can follow a flow like this to help you make progress with your continuous improvement efforts. So I want to illustrate a fundamental aspect of value stream management just so that you understand where we're coming from and what value stream management is kind of built on top of. Is this idea of assessing a value stream. One of my favorite things to do with a team when we're starting out with value stream management is mapping the value stream. And so what that looks like is really, again, looking at all the activities that are involved in creating and delivering value to customers. And what's critical about a value stream map is that you actually measure. And so this is a very different thing than a flow chart or just mapping a process, because we're actually measuring how long things take. And we can layer on all kinds of information here. We can add different roles that are involved in each activity, the tools that are involved. We can talk about quality. We can talk about testing. We can talk about validation opportunities. We can talk about value added activity and the percentage of time that we spend adding value. The basic structure of a value stream map is extremely powerful because you can just layer any data that you want about value stream performance on top of it and relate it to the specific activities, the specific things that are happening. So I will start with a value stream map very often when I want to understand the current state of what's happening. And we can connect it to all kinds of different other ways of assessing. We can connect it to dependencies. We can connect it to areas of the organization. It's extremely valuable. But what it will reveal is where most of your time or most of your issues are present, which allows you to focus, right? All of a sudden you go from, okay, the whole value stream is a problem to this specific area of a value stream is something that we can focus on. And so you can understand not just where to focus, but the value of focusing there. Because if we're able to address this focused aspect of the value stream, we're going to see an overall return on investment, right? So what happens when we do that? If we look at a typical product development stream, we can go from many, many stages, a lot of inconsistency, a lot of lost time in rework, a lot of confusion about how the workflow is actually operating. And we can move it to something that's very concise, very specific, highly optimized. And this actually happens very quickly. So once you map a value stream, these opportunities kind of just pop out to you because you don't spend your time measuring on a regular basis. So this can affect many different dimensions. It really depends what you measure and what you want to do. The way that we advise folks to get started down this path is to really begin with a vision. Again, begin with this target. And vision can be very specific. It can be very aspirational. It can be very detailed. You can talk about a future state. A lot of the time, what I advise folks to do is write a press release. I love a press release that says, this is where we are at a point in time in the future. And you could say that 6 months in the future, 5 years in the future. And the press release is basically saying, we just accomplished this monumental goal. And here's what it took to get there. And, we learned the following things. And we're now at a position in the market and with our customers. And here's how our customers feel about what we've just done. That's an extremely powerful way of establishing a vision that can help align everybody who needs to contribute to this effort, right? Because it doesn't happen in isolation with a single person. So what we want to do then is look at the value stream or streams that contribute to that vision, right? So we want to be able to target them. And again, we can work backwards from customer outcomes. We want to bring people together. Who's involved in these value streams? Who are the contributors? Who are we going to have to bring into this effort? Whether they're involved directly or we need to keep them informed, right? You can do that a number of different ways. We map the current state of the value stream. We understand the flow as it is today. We connect tooling. So we connect data sources and information that helps us understand the value stream as it performs over time. We inspect that data and understand what it means for each of the metrics that we're tracking, whether they're headed in the right direction, what we can do about them, how we're going to systematically improve those metrics over time. And then we adapt, right? So we make decisions about what it's going to take to get to a better level of performance. And that cycle continues. So we go backwards and forwards through inspection and adaptation to continuously improve. So what does value stream management look like from a cultural perspective, from an organizational perspective? if we think of it in terms of an iceberg and that there's things that we can see and things that we can't see. So what you will see is things like vision, right? That press release, what we're trying to do. You're going to see people able to work on their own, to focus more on capabilities, to fall into that state of personal flow and spend more time focused on the work that actually matters. And the things that you don't see really are, I think, a lot more challenging. So it's important to understand that incentives are a part of this. Like, why are we trying to do these things? How do we motivate people to do the things that we want, right? It's not really natural for people to focus on improvement efforts unless we incentivize that and we give them space to do it, because a lot of people are just too busy doing the work, right? They can't step away from the work and look at how the work is working unless we give them space and we tell them that that's important. So we want to make sure that we have incentives aligned, that we understand that value stream management isn't about eliminating jobs or trying to get people to do more or be busier or eliminate the downtime that they have to recharge or think or be creative. It's really about minimizing waste, right? Things that nobody wants and nobody wants to do, and maximizing things like creativity and time to come up with new ideas and implement new automation and improvements, right? A lot of folks mix this up with ideas about, okay, well, if we just eliminate all the delays, people are just constantly working. And that's not what it's about. It's really about working effectively and having more time to do things that really matter rather than just busy work. So a lot of this gets wrapped up together, and it's important to consider the parts of this that aren't as visible, aren't as apparent, because they're incredibly important. So when we think about value stream management, we think about this entire iceberg and all of the factors that contribute to better outcomes and more sustainable high performance outcomes. So if this is interesting to you, I'm wrapping up now because I realize I've been talking for a long time and I'd love to get a couple of questions. We've published a course at the Value Stream Management Consortium that takes you through a ton of this information, way more than I've been able to cover, of course. It's about 10 hours of video and lots of resources. And we run an entire community. So the Value Stream Management Consortium it's led by vendors, but also community experts and consultants and advisors like myself. And we really bring people together to talk about things like value stream management, collaboration, holistic organizational performance. We're really all about how do you get an organization to work better together. And so if that's interesting to you, snap a photo of that QR code, and I would love to see you there. It's really a great space. So with that, I'm going to shut up and see if there's any questions.